It wasn't the biggest, it wasn't the fastest. But for riders looking for one machine that could do it all, the Suzuki DR-Z400 was the answer. When it first rolled onto the scene in 2000, it didn't roar for attention like a fire-breathing superbike. It didn't dominate desert races like Honda's mighty XR650R. Instead, it carved out its own quiet legend by being the bike you could ride to work on a Monday, hit the backcountry trails on a Saturday, and still trust to get you home again without a hiccup. For a generation of riders, the DR-Z400 became more than just another dual sport. It was affordable, dependable, and endlessly adaptable. You could bolt on knobby tires and chase dusty trails. You could slap on a set of 17-inch wheels and carve corners in the city as a supermoto. And if you just wanted to cruise a few back roads on a warm summer evening, it did that too, without ever feeling out of place. In a world where motorcycles often seemed specialized to the point of being impractical, the DR-Z400 struck a balance. Not too heavy, not too weak. A bike that asked for very little but gave back a whole lot. And that's why, nearly 25 years later, it's still with us. At the turn of the new millennium, motorcycling was at a crossroads. The 1990s had been dominated by extremes, fire-breathing sport bikes that pushed past 150 miles an hour, and heavy adventure machines that looked ready to cross continents but felt like wrestling matches on a narrow trail. Riders wanted something different, something practical, light, and versatile enough to handle both worlds. That's where the story of the Suzuki DR-Z400 begins. In 2000, Suzuki read the market better than most. Honda was busy proving its desert dominance with the liquid-cooled XR650R. Kawasaki was experimenting with its KLX lineup. Yamaha had the WR series for hardcore dirt riders, but there was still a gap. A bike that could be licensed for the street, that was rugged enough for real off-road use, yet didn't overwhelm average riders with weight or complexity. Suzuki stepped into that gap with confidence. The DR-Z400 wasn't a showpiece. It didn't come draped in flashy styling or over-the-top performance numbers. Instead, it was designed with a kind of blue-collar sensibility, a dependable 398 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine, a frame that could take a beating, and just enough modern technology, like liquid cooling and a lightweight chassis, to keep it relevant. It was, in many ways, the right motorcycle at the right time. At the dawn of the 21st century, when riders were searching for one machine that could cover more ground with less hassle, the DR-Z400 quietly arrived and filled the role better than anyone expected. When you look closely at the DR-Z400, you can see why it struck such a chord with riders. Suzuki didn't overcomplicate it, but they didn't cut corners either. The heart of the machine was a 398 cubic centimeters, 4-stroke DOHC single, liquid-cooled for durability, yet simple enough that backyard mechanics could still keep it running with basic tools. It wasn't a high-strung racer's engine. Instead, it offered a broad, forgiving power band. Enough torque to climb rocky hills. Enough smoothness to cruise down a highway at 65 miles an hour. And just enough punch to put a grin on your face when you twisted the throttle. The chassis was just as practical. A strong steel frame gave the bike toughness, while long travel suspension soaked up ruts, roots, and potholes with ease. Up front, a cartridge fork kept the front wheel planted in the dirt. Out back, a linkage-style shock-balanced comfort with control. It wasn't exotic like some European machines, but it worked. Day after day, mile after mile. Weight was always a concern in dual-sport bikes, and Suzuki managed a balance. At around 317 pounds for the street-legal S model, it was light enough to maneuver on trails, yet stable enough on the open road. Riders didn't feel like they were wrestling a bear, nor did they feel underpowered against traffic. Even small touches spoke to its thoughtful design. A reliable electric starter meant no exhausting kick-starts on a steep hillside. The 5-speed gearbox was wide enough to handle both crawling climbs and highway stretches. And with its simple carburetor fueling, It was easy to tune or repair far from home. The DR-Z400 wasn't flashy, but in its design, you could sense Suzuki's goal: to build a bike that worked everywhere, for everyone, without drama. One of the smartest moves Suzuki made with the DR-Z400 was offering it in different flavors, each tuned for a specific kind of rider. Instead of forcing one model to fit every situation, they gave customers choices. The most common was the DR-Z400S, the street-legal dual sport. This was the do-it-all version, equipped with mirrors, turn signals, and all the essentials to keep it DMV-friendly. You could commute to work during the week, then head for the dirt trails on the weekend without ever swapping machines. For many Americans, this was the bike that finally made dual sport riding practical. Then came the DR-Z400E, the off-road-focused enduro. It shed some of the street gear, carried a bit more power thanks to different tuning, and was aimed squarely at trail riders who wanted more punch and less weight. In the woods or on backcountry trails, the E earned a reputation as a rugged companion that could handle long days without complaint. But perhaps the most surprising was the DR-Z400SM, the supermoto version. With 17-inch wheels, street-tuned suspension, and a playful personality, it was an instant hit among younger riders in cities and suburbs. Suddenly, the same machine that could crawl over boulders in the wilderness was being used to carve corners downtown, jump curbs, and light up back roads with a grin. Each version spoke to a different crowd, yet all carried the same DNA: reliable, adaptable, and built to take a beating. By splitting the lineup, Suzuki made sure the DR-Z400 wasn't just one motorcycle. It became a family, a platform that reached across generations of riders. Ask anyone who spent time in the saddle of a DR-Z400, and they'll tell you, the experience isn't about raw speed, it's about balance. On a tight forest trail, the bike feels nimble and forgiving. The suspension soaks up roots and rocks. The engine delivers steady pull without drama, and the weight never feels overwhelming. It's a motorcycle that encourages you to keep going, even when the path ahead looks rough. On the open road, the DR-Z400 holds its own. Cruising at 55 to 65 miles an hour feels natural, the single cylinder thumping along with a steady rhythm. It won't blow past cars on the interstate, but that's not the point. What it offers is confidence, that feeling that the bike will keep running mile after mile, whether you're rolling through farmland or riding out to the next small town. Then there's the SM version, the supermoto. If the trail models were about grit, the SM was about fun. With its smaller wheels and tighter handling, it turned everyday streets into playgrounds. Riders carved corners, slid through intersections, and grinned their way down winding back roads. It was a reminder that motorcycles don't always have to be about top speed. They can simply be about joy. And that may be the secret of the DR-Z400. Whether on dirt, pavement, or somewhere in between, it feels approachable. It never punishes mistakes, but it rewards persistence. For riders young and old, it became a faithful companion, delivering the simple pleasure of two wheels without unnecessary complication. Nearly a quarter century after its debut, the Suzuki DR-Z400 is still with us. That alone says something. In a motorcycle world where models often vanish after just a few years, the DR-Z400 has endured, rolling off showroom floors with only minor updates since 2000. Riders didn't mind. In fact, they celebrated its consistency. Part of its legacy lies in sheer reliability. Owners talk about putting tens of thousands of miles on their DR-Zs with little more than oil changes, valve checks, and the occasional chain replacement. It became known as the bike you could trust on a cross-country trip or take into the backcountry without worrying about being stranded. That kind of dependability built loyalty that other manufacturers struggled to match. Another reason for its staying power is community. The DR-Z400 spawned countless forums, clubs, and garage projects. Riders shared tips, modifications, and road stories. Some turned their bikes into long-distance adventure machines with oversized tanks and luggage racks. Others stripped them down for racing. Many simply kept them stock and enjoyed years of faithful service. Whatever the approach, the DR-Z brought people together. Then there's its cultural footprint. The supermoto version became a favorite in cities, showing up in stunt videos, weekend track days, and even television. Meanwhile, the S&E versions quietly filled trails and dirt roads from Colorado to California, from the Appalachian Hills to the deserts of Arizona. The DR-Z400 may not dominate headlines, but its legacy is undeniable. It proved that sometimes the most lasting motorcycles aren't the loudest or the flashiest. They're the ones that simply do their job so well that riders never want to let them go. In the end, the Suzuki DR-Z400 never needed to shout. It didn't chase glory on the racetrack or boast about being the most powerful in its class. Instead, it built its reputation the honest way, mile after mile, trail after trail, year after year. It was the bike that always started, always got you home, and always left you smiling along the way. For some, it became the gateway into dual sport riding. For others, it was the faithful companion on journeys across deserts, mountains, and endless back roads. And for nearly 25 years, it's proven that a motorcycle doesn't have to be the biggest or the fastest to earn a permanent place in our memories. The DR-Z400 is more than just a machine. It's a reminder of why we ride. Simplicity, freedom, reliability, a two-wheeled friend that asks for little but gives back a lifetime of adventure. How about you? Do you have a story with the DR-Z400? Maybe a first ride, a long trip, or a trail that left you grinning ear to ear? Share it in the comments below. If this brought back a memory or a smile, give it a like to support the channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss our next journey into the legends that shaped motorcycling history.